you guys and learn more maybe about what some of you guys are up to.
Cool. So the way that this is going to work is I'm just going to kind of throw I heard softballs to you, fast pitches to you. That's what we talked about before yesterday.
Life is not fair.
And then we're going to leave a lot of room for questions at the end. I know that just in some conversations with a lot of you, you have asked for specific questions, and so I want to give you guys time with that. But first, I want to get sort of a temperature gauge on the room. How many here have a podcast and are currently making money from their podcast? Awesome. And then how many people are not making money yet, but still have a podcast? Okay. And then how many people have an idea, but don't yet have a podcast? Awesome. All right. So the first question I just want to kind of throw back and forth to you guys in a conversational setting is if you had to talk to kind of the top 3 ways that you have seen or experienced making money in a creative way with your shows, what would you say, or the people that you've worked with, how would you go about kind of elaborating on that?
The top 3?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you the top 1 for us is to sell our own stuff. Whether that's coaching or whether that's an online product or something to that extent. That being said, it's usually not an A to B relationship. So I'm not going to go on my podcast and say, hey, here's this product that I'm selling and I expect to get sales directly from that. It's not impossible, it's just unlikely. So one of the best ways you can do that, though, is to warm your people up, to warm your audience up that are on the fence, that are already on your email list, which, by the way, if you don't have one, do not record another single episode until you have an email list and you have a strategy to grow that list. But usually we'll send stuff out to nurture that audience to sell our own product. That's pretty much the number 1 way that I've seen. I've also seen a lot of collaboration. I just did one. Some of you may know Marie Forleo with her B-School program. We had a $50,000 affiliate launch with her. That is a tremendously, she converted over 10% for an affiliate launch. That's unbelievable. So for us, those are the primary 2 ways. The third way that we've done it anyways is in line with some of our courses. We have affiliate sponsors. I'm not a big fan of sponsorship because I think, and that's why I'm saying it's third. I would rather sell my own stuff than take a cut of selling somebody else's shit. That's my thing, right? But that all said, I will also loop in an affiliate if it ties into my core offer. So I'll give you an example. Let's say in one of my programs, which is teaching you, I have a program called the Startup Launch. It basically takes you boom to tune, how to start a business and things you should be doing along the way so you don't F shit up, because it's very easy to do that in a startup. In line with that, I recommend resources to use. For example, they talked about Squadcast earlier. Squadcast is an affiliate sponsor of mine. So in line with those programs and the resources that I recommend to you inside of my program, if you sign up for that using my link, right? So it's building in, kind of adding additional value to what I'm already selling. But I'm not just randomly dropping an affiliate sponsor in relation to content that has nothing to do with that specific episode, right? That's where people make a mistake. And the problem is with that, and I'm sorry, I'm probably going over the time here. The problem in line with that is you have to think about in terms of what your audience has been trained to do, right? So historically speaking, if you're listening to the radio, you're not accustomed to tune into who sponsors that segment of a radio show. So you have been trained to, I need to do something because I want to support this person, but traditionally speaking, I'm not accustomed to having to go sign up with that person's link. So I may plant a seed in somebody's mind in my episode, and they sign up for that service down the road, but they're not going to come back to get my link to do so. So I just did free advertisement for them. So there's a reason why I like to tie it in on the back end of my paywall to increase the value of that transaction after I've made the sale. So those are the top 3 ways for me, and I'm sure there's plenty of other things to cover with you. So I collaborate with other people, like bigger name folks, and I'll do like a promotional launch with some sort of collaboration with them, like before they would start.
So I like to think of it in terms of 3 categories that can make money. There's kind of 3 major areas you can make money in. Which of those categories will work best for you depends on the topic of your podcast. So category 1 is selling other people's stuff, so advertising, sponsorships, affiliates. Category 2 is selling your own stuff, where you're creating products or merchandise for your listeners. And then category 3 is patronage/membership. And I used to have a podcast called The Creative Funding Show, which is still available if you want to listen. We have episodes on all of these different categories on how to do them. But when you're trying to decide which to do first, because I recommend just do one thing well at first. Don't try to do everything all at once. Which category will work best for you depends on your topic and your audience. And so for instance, if you have a show on a popular topic without a very defined audience, so let's say you're doing a Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast. And, season 6, it just came out, it's very exciting, love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But this kind of person who's a fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that doesn't tell you much about that person, right? You can have very different people who are interested in very different products, and you may have a lot of them. So what's the best way to make money off a podcast like that? Well, maybe sponsorships like Casper or Freshbox, right? Those kind of generic products for generic people. And for that to work, you need a lot of listeners, right? Everybody has to sleep, and Casper mattresses are cheap, and they buy lots of ads. And so, every Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. listener is a potential mattress sleeper person, right? To buy a Casper mattress. So the second group is selling products, right? It'd be hard to sell an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. product because of licensing, right? If I put Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on a box, Marvel and Disney is suing me. Let me tell you, you do not want to get into a lawsuit with Disney because you will lose just by default. The lawyers are like, ooh, Disney, Mickey Mouse, I'm going with them. I don't care what you have to say, and you lose all your money. Whereas if you have, let's say, an entrepreneurship podcast and you're teaching, you can sell your teaching in a bunch of different ways. You can put together a course, you can put together coaching, like a mastermind group, you could have a membership program, or you could sell your teaching one-on-one. And then, let's say you have a podcast, you have a very passionate small group of people, but there's not really anything you can sell them per se. Having patronage can work. And we bring in $300 a month for novel marketing. We also sell courses, so we have the courses that we sell and we make more money on the courses. But the $300 a month that we get from donations from our listeners helps cover all of our production costs. And we know every month we're going to bring in at least $300. And you can connect them. So our patrons get discounts on our courses. And Patreon is a way to do it, but you can also do it on your own website. There's pros and cons. We can get into that if you are curious.
Awesome. I have no idea what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. means. Oh, I guess speaking another language. Okay.
This is making me cry inside. Have you heard of the Avengers?
I have no idea. But I do. Okay. So for the people that are brand new to, they have an idea, and I know that Jessica spoke earlier about, podcasting is not a business. But for those of us who want podcasting to be a business, for us, and obviously I know she spoke about a lot of other things. But if you're starting out, how soon is too soon to start monetizing your show?
So that is completely contingent upon the nature of your show. So for me, it was like a pretty immediate thing because I was using it as a sales tool. So rather than me be a guy, let's say I'm involved with a startup, right? And we need to speak to X investor. For me, I would interview that investor on my show and then say, oh, hey, by the way, and start building that relationship. So it was dynamite to concrete doors in that sense. So it was an immediate thing. I think in some of them, like a Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. type show, it's going to be a little bit more of a longer, drawn-out process because it's not really a time frame per se. It's really figuring out how things are evolving.
And having the right audience size.
Yeah, having the right audience size and then figuring out what they want and listening to what they want or what the feedback that you're getting is kind of let that guy. So I think the reason I say this is because I hate for you to make the mistake of going in and being dead set on this is how I'm going to monetize and this is when I'm going to monetize and not let it naturally unfold. I said this yesterday to some folks. Clarity does not strike, it unfolds. All right? Clarity does not strike, it unfolds. So I think a lot of people go in with the mindset of, I need to monetize this in the first 5 episodes. And then when they get to 5 episodes and they're nowhere near that, that's why this substantial number, which I've heard figures why it's like 80% of people that podcast for the first 20 episodes. That is terrible. But I think it's because you have a false set of expectations. All forms of content, podcasting is not immune to this, is a long-form build, right? So if you're going in and you've got a runway of 2 weeks, you are going to be done in about a week and a half because you're going to realize quickly this is not that game. If that's you, I'm sorry to and you weren't aware of that, I'm sorry to kind of rain on your parade, but that is the nature of it. So let it unfold. Really also, in terms of, maybe I can change the question a little bit. So one of the things that we really did that might help you in terms of not just when, but how to monetize is be a lurker, right? There's not anyone that I know that's in my space. I know how they communicate with the people. I know the ads that they run. I know the ways that they monetize. I know when they started monetizing, I went back and listened to their first episodes. They made the blueprint for you. And you can see the shit that they jacked up and did wrong, and you can avoid those things so you get to where you monetize much faster than they did. One in particular, I'm not going to throw his name out. I will. Lewis House. So I followed Lewis because at the time I felt like him and I had a pretty similar voice. I've kind of created my own voice out of that, but I really liked his general mantra. I went back and read his first 50 reviews of his show. And the reason being is that I wanted to see the things that people were complaining about, the things they praised him for, anything they said in between, because that told me what people wanted. And as a result of that, within the first 2 weeks, my show was trending top 5 in the world under business, health, and education on iTunes. Because I literally looked for what people were looking for, and I looked at some other things too. But we hit the ground running because of the preparation. So the reason I want to say that is you're going to leave this conference and maybe want to hit the ground running. Sharpen your axe before you swing. Do the research. I have a 4-step of anything I recommend you. Learn, implement, test, and repeat. If you can nail those 4 things, you're going to do well. But too many people, specifically entrepreneurs, are just trying to do, and see what sticks. That wastes you time. That's valuable time. And you're going to burn yourself out or get tired of doing this, and that leads to a lot of those things. So, I know it doesn't directly answer your question. I'm sure hopefully Thomas can maybe do that because you get a lot more practical application than I do. But that would be the mindset that I had approaching how and what I'd be doing to figure out what my monetization strategy needs to look like.
One of the things that's important to realize with podcasting is that it's a very unique medium and how it spreads and how people engage with it. So if a viral image is like the common cold, right? It spreads really quickly, but then people forget it, right? Twitter, Facebook, it's very fast spreading, but very low engagement. A blog is like a virus, like the flu, right? You might get subscribed for a little while, you might read a longer, more in-depth post. It still spreads pretty quickly, but not as fast as, say, a funny photo or a cat video. A podcast is like a sexually transmitted disease. It spreads very slowly. Most people find out about podcasts from somebody else telling them about it, like one-on-one. But once you subscribe to a podcast, there's an 80% chance you're going to finish the episodes that you listen to. And there's a good chance that you're going to stay subscribed for months or years. So if somebody subscribes to my podcast, that is sometimes dozens of hours of my voice in their head. And you may have, if you haven't been podcasting for a while, you come across a podcasting fan, it's like, oh my gosh, like you're the voice in my head, like I've been listening to you. And the thing with podcasting is it's super intimate, right? People listen alone. It's not typically a shared experience. It's the most intimate of all of the mediums, right? You are in the most private moments of people's day, and you're sharing that every week, which is really powerful, but it's also a little tricky to monetize, right? If somebody listens to me every day when they're walking their dog, you know what they're not doing while they're walking the dog? Pulling out their phone and making a purchase. If you want to have that next step, you have to have another way of engaging with your audience than just having them listen to you, because they may love you and never remember when they're done getting home from traffic to actually do the thing that you talked about, or to send in a comment or tweet or all the things that you wanted. The people engage with podcasts in a very non-interactive space often. Some people listen to podcasts while they're at their computer, and God bless those people because they leave great iTunes reviews. But there's not a lot of them, right? A lot of people are listening while they're driving down the road. And this is why what he's talking about creating an email list is so critical. And to my shame, for the first 3 years or 4 years of the Novel Marketing Podcast, we are literally teaching on email marketing and showing examples of our other things. And we did not have our own email list. And it was like the worst thing that we did from a monetization perspective was not having an email list, because people who loved us, they were totally willing to subscribe. And then when we made the ads, like, hey, we launched a Patreon, here's the link. Or, hey, we're launching a course, here's the link. Those people would buy absolutely, but they needed that reminder when they're in front of their computer. The only way to give them that reminder was through email.
So one of the things that I see when people are starting off on their podcast, right, is they're so quick to sell out to sponsors. And they're so quick to have the moment somebody offers them money, they're like, okay, yeah, I'll take it, even though it has no relevance to their audience. And And so my philosophy from my first podcast to this podcast to my next podcast has always been, I'm going to hold off and really protect my audience so that I know that they're listening to me, and my belief is that the more time people spend with me, the more money they want to spend with me. So I know that more time with me equals more money with me. So just keep in mind, as you're going through your creative content, that you get to set the stage, you get to protect your audience and create amazing value for them, whether it be bringing them into a Facebook group. And I think you make a really great point about how nobody's ready to just pull out their credit card or their, I don't know if people use checkbooks anymore, but you know, I don't. To actually make a purchase. So it's this like, you're warming them up, you're getting them ready, and also one of the mistakes I see is that people don't communicate what they actually do and what they're selling. And I had somebody write into me and say, I know you're really passionate about what you do, I actually just don't know what it is. I was like, wow, that's embarrassing. So then I had a whole episode, right? I was like, it's your email list, right? I was like, what? Okay, this is what I sell. And to just make sure that you are communicating that, right? Like, tell people what it is that you're selling. All right, so kind of veering off a little bit, but what I want to bring us back to is we're talking about creative ways to monetize. So are there specific ways that you have seen other people are doing a great job? And I know you said you do a lot of research on other people, but what are other ways other than selling your own products, working, collaborating with other big brands, and having some sort of membership or Patreon? Is there a creative tweak to something that we're not seeing, or a trend that's moving forward that we should pay attention to?
So I would say the most creative thing that you can do, and this is a great hack that every single one of you can use, is to ask your listeners what they want from you. It seems so simple. Somebody asks a question like, how do you interface with your listeners? How do you hear back from them? And the answer is, it depends on your audience. So I know some podcasts that have a subreddit for that podcast and are super active. And they have this really great engagement with their listener base. With others, there's a comment on the blog post, and their listeners really engage with them there. For us, what has worked best is having a Facebook group for our podcast, and we share every episode through repurpose.io, which turns the audio into a video that can be shared on Facebook as native Facebook content. And I post it as official discussion thread for episode 186. And everyone posts their comments and they react to each other all down below. And we get 10 times more engagement on Facebook than we got on our blog, which made me sad because I hate Facebook. And we rail against Facebook in the podcast, and yet that's what our users use because that's what authors are on. They scale older, they're like the core demographic of Facebook.
What video or graphics do you use to go with that audio?
So with repurpose.io, it's just the album art, and it's all automatic. So repurpose.io subscribes to your podcast and automatically posts the video to Facebook and to YouTube. I think I pay $20 a month, there's a $12 a month level. The video doesn't get great engagement because it's really boring video because there's nothing to see, just a little audiogram, but it gets better algorithm treatment than posting a link to our blog post, which is what we use today.
The money's in the email list. I'm literally going to keep saying that because if you're not doing that, you're selling yourself so short. Like email list.
The banana stand. There's money in the banana stand.
I mean, that's literally all it is. But the way that you can increase your conversions to grow your email, because we've been growing our email list at a very slow rate with just the podcast. About 8 months ago or so, we tapped back into a strategy that built basically my first 7-figure business back when I first started, which was blogging. And the reason being, and why you really need to consider a platform that involves search, right? So what are the major 3 search platforms? Obviously Google or Safari, right? The search engines. YouTube, what's the third? Pinterest. So, that all said, yeah. So search like Google, right? So you write something on your website, a blog, which we're going to get into. People discover that, right? It's the biggest search engine in the world. YouTube is the second, Pinterest is the third. Those are the main 3. If you are not on one, if not all of those 3, and you're trying to go podcast, what you're going to find is frustration, right? And I see some people go hustle on social media. I'm about the hustle game on social media. I really am. Do you know how long the life of a tweet is on the feed? 30 seconds. How many times in your life have you scrolled down somebody's Twitter feed? Which is amazing to me because sometimes people tweet things like 10 years ago and get in trouble for it. I have no idea how people find those, right? It's like, how do you do that?
Dedicated haters.
Right? But the odds and the likelihood that someone scrolls scrolls all the way down to see this amazing thing. You could have literally said, I'm giving $1 million away to whoever retweets this tweet. And you might get 2 retweets. Because no one is seeing it anymore unless it goes like crazy viral, right?
Someone asked earlier, how do you know if you've made it? I feel like hater tweets. Like somebody
Hater
finds it.
tweets, yeah.
Somebody finds that.
So,
You have to earn haters. Like, no one starts off with haters. You start off with your friends and family. Seriously, haters are earned, and you know you've arrived. And people are like making an effort to dig up your old stuff, and you're like, see, this guy's a loser.
So one of the things that we did was we doubled back down on blogging. So we embed our player inside of the blog that relates to that specific piece of content. It also, ironically, established me. So I call it a conversation platform, but an interview platform. I have guests on my show. You guys have heard of like some bigger name entrepreneurs, David John, Robert Corcoran, Grant Cardell, Guy Kawasaki. The problem is that with just the podcast we discovered it was me like propping them up. Like, hey, David John is great. Watch Shark Tank. Oh, I'm just a guy, right? So that really hurt me in terms of where I was positioning myself. If they discover me through a blog, which is a higher probability they will discover me through a blog, because the beauty is it's the exact opposite of social media. If you write high, rich, relevant content in blog format, long-form blog format, it has a better chance to go viral, quote unquote, or be discovered the longer it exists, but actually gains its health, so to speak, the longer it exists. Same with YouTube, same with Pinterest. We were literally driving 3,000 to 4,000 customers every single month with one pin for like 2 years. So, don't let your efforts not be maximized. So I always pair non-searchable, non-discoverable content with searchable, discoverable content for that very reason. So all of my podcasts go with, not all, we do long-form blog content, but any of our cornerstone content that I feel like is relevant for what we're trying to sell, we will write a blog. This year we've actually been batching YouTube videos, so we're going to have basically 3 mediums, all the same topic, right, condensed inside of that blog. So you go there, you find the player listening to the podcast, read the blog, and have a YouTube video embedded all around that same piece of content on 3 different mediums, 2 open searchability wise. But
in your experience, what do you consider a long form?
so I do 2,000 to 5,000 words per blog episode.
Yeah, if you heard the advice, I'm going to tell you that short, long posts are better.
No, bullshit.
It works for Seth Godin, and if you're not Seth Godin, it's probably not going to work for you. And if y'all want a really quick hack for how to get a lot of your listeners on your email list, like in the next 3 weeks. So here is what I've done works incredibly well. Host a webinar with one of your guests. Let's say you have a 20-minute interview with one of your guests and like, hey, we're going to have a webinar on this topic on June 1st at 7 o'clock Central. It's a free webinar, and you can ask questions of the guest yourself. I'll be on. And then, in order to get on that webinar, you have to register with your email address. So it's the same kind of content they've already been getting and enjoying from you. And say the only way to get the recorded versions will only be posted on the webinar. You have to sign up to get it. Then people, even if they can't come at 7 o'clock on the 1st, will register to get the recording. And now you have all of those people's email addresses. Yes, ma'am.
I offer for sale training certificates, and my audience eats.
So we've talked a lot about email lists. One of the things that I do on my show is so my conversation is a lot about personal development, but I know that my audience is female entrepreneurs primarily. I have a lot more men kind of engaging, which is exciting. But one of the things that I do is I have my guests, I just say, can you stay after for 5 more minutes? And I'm going to ask you rapid fire business questions, because I actually know that's what my audience wants to hear about. That's just not the conversation that I want to be having on the show. So I ask them to stay after, and then my editor edits out those, we'll say anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. That then I put behind an opt-in. So you have to opt in to actually get and listen to that short, really short recording. That's a great way to give them what they actually want by doing the things that you're already doing and just asking them to stay after for 5 more minutes, which they're really happy to do. So I've grown my email list quite a bit just by doing that, to have them, go over, and I host it through SoundCloud and whatnot. So yeah, go ahead.
Are you segmenting your email list, or are you emailing your whole list?
It depends. It depends on the nature of the content. If you're just blasting out episodes, the whole list. But if you have freebie resources for every single episode, or you have specific resources that you give as like a PDF download, those need to be tagged. You can have specific product offers that are for that specific tag because you know what they're interested in. Otherwise, you're sending out blanket emails to sell stuff that they're not even interested in.
So there's tagging is kind of new. I know a lot of people got started on MailChimp, and MailChimp has just added tagging. There are other platforms like ConvertKit that are and ActiveCampaign and Drip, those are the big three that make this much more integrated, much more in-depth into the experience. So if you are kind of new, I know this is the email talk, and I'm sure, do you have training on email?
Yes, we do.
He has training on email. I've got some free episodes on how marketing on email. We'll go into more of it, but there's a huge world of email, and it really is very compatible with the podcasting strategy. But it is a thing to learn. Like, it's not just like sending an email. Don't BCC every, like, there's a lot of mistakes you can do. Don't be that guy.
I want to open it up to questions. If you guys have questions, specific things, obviously keeping in mind other people in the room, so maybe not completely specific to your business, but something that could help other people would be really open.
I'm just really curious because all of you are talking about email, and I've just been at other conferences earlier this year where we're having so many conversations about using bots and using Facebook Messenger. So do you really focus on just email? Bots? Hate them? Love them?
I think bots are a secondary effort after you've got your email marketing figured out. I'm not dismissing bots. I think bots and Messenger are definitely trendy right now. I'm not saying they're shiny objects in there. That's not what I'm saying. I think it's very effective. But I would not put the cattle in front of the horse, right? I would. Yes. The other thing too, so the other things can help you too in terms of if you start running paid advertisement is you can actually show up in Messenger. You can use your email list as either a retarget or a lookalike audience and show up in their Messenger. So it all starts. It all starts with the email because there's so much more you can do with those emails, including what you're talking about Messenger Bot. But I think it is a really good strategy.
Chris, you and I were talking about this a little bit yesterday, but you've actually recently reduced your number of episodes that you're doing. Is that part of the strategy with the long-form content and video that you're employing as well?
That I did what now? That I showed?
Reduced your episode quantity, like you're not doing as many weekly now.
Yeah, I didn't want a week because it's more of a production in terms of the blog and the YouTube and all that. We want content to we want the content to live long and prosper, right? Not necessarily to just be like on their mind and that's it, right? So we found that once a week was a sweet spot for us to do all those other things and still build the business. We didn't see a real uptick in downloads per se just by velocity of production, right? But over time, what we started to see was an organic increase in downloads, which I hate. To me, that's a vanity metric, just downloads. Like, I don't even like using that word. Show me traffic and show me email list figures. Those are the only two things I care about, period. And outside of financial rating. But the frequency of production just didn't seem to move the needle enough to justify the time and effort we were putting into it. Sorry, Thomas, I'm like jumping the gun. Everything. I guess that was very good.
Just real quick, a social media marketing world this year, they talked about bots and they talked about engagement and the bait posts and the bots. Social media is going to start shutting those down. It's already shut down HubSpot, Buffer, third-party posting. They've already shut that down. Next is bots. Next is bait posts. They're going to shut that down.
Well, I think that goes back to like a general principle of content marketing. It's like, if you're an email list, you own that. If Facebook changes their platform, you're screwed. Like, you have to play by their rules, right? So it's borrowed.
It's digital sharecropping when you're using a social media platform. And one last tip on email real quick. Create an onboarding sequence. And if you want to see this done, we created one for novel marketing, where we send out 4 or 5 emails over the course of 2 to 3 weeks that introduce the show and introduce us as hosts, and we ask questions of our audience. Now, why do we ask questions? Like in email 3, it's like, what is your biggest marketing pet peeve? Well, we do that for 2 reasons. One, we want to stay connected with our audience and understand what their pains are. But 2, when they respond to that email, it triggers in their Gmail or Yahoo, oh, this should go to the main inbox, not to promotions. And after they respond several times, you never go to promoted posts. You always go to that main inbox. And so it's this great kind of 3-for-1. So we're introducing ourselves, we're getting the engagement up, while simultaneously increasing our deliverability across our entire list.
Really good advice.
Oh, by the way, they shut down my podcast Twitter because of a posting bot. So don't do that.
Which were you using?
I told you.
Any letter-ish? It's crap.
Are any of you guys utilizing communities like Facebook groups, etc., as part? I'm not on group just to build the community than to sell? And what, I mean, because I have multiple groups, high numbers, big email list, but what have you done specifically to monetize that group, or is it just purely another community builder?
So I have one of my podcasting clients is actually a beta for a new feature that Facebook is rolling out where there are paid groups. And she's bringing in $2,000 or $3,000 a month from her few hundred members of her group. And she provides premium content, and like this is a new thing that Facebook's rolling out. So you can actually soon you'll be able to directly monetize the group. But other than that, it's just hoping they see your links to buy stuff from you.
Yeah, so I do the same. I bring everybody into my Facebook group. So it's either follow me on Instagram or get into my Facebook group. I actually have small numbers in my Facebook group, but they're engaged and maybe not even in the conversation inside the Facebook group, but they're all messaging me on Messenger, which sounds tedious. I have people that will like help me respond to them, but that's where I'm selling people. I actually just want to get on a call with people to say, you know, do you need business coaching? How do you start a podcast? That kind of stuff. So I can talk to you all day about Facebook groups. I think they're underutilized.
They are few, but they are mighty, for their hearts are pure.
One of the things we've done, my wife and I are partners in each other's business. One of the things we've done with her specifically, because she starts seeing an increased demand for people wanting to be in a private community, right, is we created a free level and a paid level, and we designate it as such. So we'll say like the business lounge, free level, the business lounge, paid level. Because what that does is they get involved with some of the conversations that are happening, but they're also like, okay, well, this is a free level, so it creates the curiosity factor of what's the next step once they've been there long enough. I would say that community, we're adding like hundreds of people a day to the free level. Most of those people eventually, a good percentage, I would say probably 10% or more, eventually will say, I want to know what the paid level is about. We get that question every single day, like what does the paid level entail? So I would just say this, if you're going to do a free level, make sure that you explicitly designate it as such, because the thing we didn't do is we had two levels. There was a free and a paid, we didn't designate it as such, and no one knew that we sold anything in that group. They just thought it was a free community and like whatever. Once we started designating it as that, we saw incremental sales coming in as a result.
Remember, I think I'm convinced the number one reason people listen to podcasts is to fill the lonely places of their lives with human voices. Like that's the deep psychological pain that podcasting.
Write that down.
That's the deep psychological pain that podcasting ministers to. And so, if loneliness is that core pain, then creating a community around your podcast is a very sympathetic, complementary way of extending that engagement, where you're not just you as a voice being in that lonely place, but now you're inviting them into this community that you curate, right? You keep out the trolls and people who don't fit, and suddenly you're surrounding them with fake community. And the ultimate next step, we were talking about this, a great way to monetize a podcast is to bring that community into the real world. It's like, hey, I'm going to be in Seattle, we're going to have a meetup, or at such and such restaurant at such and such time. I'd love to meet you if you're in the Seattle area. And then from there, you do, hey, we're doing a conference. A buddy of mine's got a podcast, the Selling Book Show, competing podcast. One of their big ways that they monetize, they have a big writers conference every year in Chicago.
Awesome. Thank you. We will all be here, so I think we have to wrap it up. I'm going to my cousin's wedding, so I'll only be here for a couple more hours. But thank you, Thomas and Chris. You guys are such a wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate it. Hope you guys learned something.